Ladies and gentlemen, you are more than welcome to this, another episode of the Coffee at 11 show brought to you by Wigwam Global. Delighted that you've chosen to join us. Thank you for being here. And in particular, I'd like to welcome our very special guest this morning, Gillian O'Gorman. Gillian, pop in, say hello, show us your coffee mug and say cheers.
Hi everyone, delighted to be here. Cheers. I have to say, wonderful energy in the group this morning. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting this, so it's a pleasant surprise. Very grateful for the invite.
Gillian, you're very welcome. It's lovely. Delighted to say we've been together, or coming together, forming for almost a year now. And but this is what it's turned into. It's pure bliss on a Friday morning, for us at least. So, and we'll keep the hard questions to a minimum for you. How's that?
That would be nice. Thank you.
Let me just tell you a little bit about Gillian O'Gorman before we bring the lady in herself, if that's okay. So Gillian O'Gorman obviously is her name. Her business name is the Wellness Lounge. Looking forward to hearing about that, Gillian. What does your business do? Help people to align their thoughts, feelings and actions to achieve success in all areas of their life. There's lots of that going on in the cafe. I think we're all largely in the same space. How long established? Since 2017. How many employees? I love this. Currently, it is just me. There's hope in that statement there. Introduction, she says she's founder of the Wellness Lounge. She's a coach, blogger, speaker, and in recovery from negative thinking. I love that phrase.
Every day.
In recovery from negative thinking. Well done. After working for 15 years in senior management roles, she experienced burnout not once but twice. Wow. And it was through her own recovery that she discovered the value of coaching and how it can transform your life. She now works with organizations and individuals across the world with clients in USA, UK, India, Germany, France, I presume Ireland as well. Her coaching programs, A Better You Today and Elevate, are life-changing and available online. Love that. Next month, she launches the Wellness Lounge membership platform, giving people access to tools and strategies to change their life. And this part I really like, right? Something nobody knows about you. She says, and I have a little treat for us all here. She says, at age 11, I sang a verse of Matchstock Men and Matchstock Cats and Dogs on stage in the Bell Table Arts Hub in Limerick while dressed as a baker. And there's video footage.
There is. Don't tell me you found it. Can I share a funny story about that? So for those of you, and there's probably very few people who have met me, I'm actually quite tall. I'm just under 6 foot. So when I was 11, I probably was like 5'9" or 5'8" or something. And they chose me to dress as the baker with the baker hat. So like already I'm with 11-year-olds that like are probably 4 foot. So already I'm tall. And then they put a baker hat. So you can imagine what that video looks like, the aesthetics. Like I look absolutely massive.
Listen, that was just joyful. I hope you didn't mind.
Not at all. It was bringing me back.
Isn't it a wonderful song? By the way, there is a movie. I think it's on Netflix about Larry. Check it out. It's quite a sad, dark movie, but check it out. Very powerful. Great stuff. Gillian, thank you for that. Thanks for inspiring us with that piece. So we can Google the Wellness Lounge, and we will, and we'll get to it towards the end of the chat here. Yeah. But what our viewers and our audience here in the cafe want to always know is who's sitting in the chair. So you bring us all the way back even before the 11-year-old on the stage, please.
Well, I was born and lived in Limerick up until the age of 19. So I did all my growing up in Limerick in a place called Cardiff. And I've seen some of the interviews previous people have shared. And I was very fortunate. Like I grew up in the 80s, so I felt very safe. Spent a lot of time on the streets playing. You learned everything on the streets through the different people, and there was a lot of kids the same age around. So I really do feel very, very privileged to have had that experience of fun. And I was sharing with someone yesterday about gratitude. I'm running a gratitude challenge at the moment, and we're being grateful for smell today. And the smell that I'm most grateful for is of freshly cut grass, because it brings back those childhood memories, summer coming. And you hear the first lawnmower and and then you smell the grass. And so my childhood was, very, very fun, very safe. I have 3 siblings. I'm the youngest. And I'm very lucky. Most of the girls that I went to school with, who I met age 4, I'm still friends with and connect with on a regular basis. So I do have very long-standing friendships, which are very, very important to me. I went to school in Limerick, and the first time I left then was to go to Maynooth. I went to Maynooth University, and I dropped out. That was stumbling block number one. Life lesson number one. I studied arts, but wasn't focused at all, wasn't really focused. And that's kind of a common thread throughout my teens and my 20s and 30s as well. Lack of focus, lack of, I think behind that lack of focus really is lack of confidence and lack of self-belief. That's really what it was all about. So I went on a path then, coming back to...
Allow me just pause you there, because you've managed to skip through about 25 years there in about 17 seconds. So go back a couple of things that just you said that just hit me. The sound of the first lawnmower. Isn't that just great? The sound of the first lawnmower. There's an image. The smell of freshly cut grass, your gratitude for same, the youngest of the family, but the long-standing friendships, as you say, girls that you hung around with at age 4, you're still hanging around with today. I think that says a lot about you in itself, straight off the bat. It's wonderful. Tell us, just before we go, because you went to Maynooth, we go there in a second, but tell us about secondary school. How was all that for you?
It was very uncomfortable, Colm. I mean, I mentioned there at the beginning about my height. What we all want to do when we're younger is fit in. And when you're always so tall, it's impossible to fit in. Also, I had a mother who was 5'1", so she had no understanding, no understanding of what I was going through. So I would always just be feeling so out of place, uncomfortable in my own skin. And she didn't get it. That wasn't her fault, because she hadn't experienced that. I mean, she was quite tiny. So school for me, even though I had friendships, it was very difficult because I felt so uncomfortable. So I felt very, the language I used at the time, ugly, so I never felt relaxed in myself. I always was lucky to have that close-knit group of friends where I felt safe. But I was always very shy, very retiring. And then that was being misconstrued for being standoffish, standoffish. So I always had that label. People would say you're standoffish. So then you're feeling even worse inside. So looking back, I got through it all because that's what you do. You respond to these situations, or you react to these situations. But I look back with great compassion, and I feel really, really sorry for that young girl who really, really inside was struggling a lot, because you can't do anything about your height, and there was nothing wrong with my height. I'm very grateful for it now. But, so school, went to Salesian secondary school. So it was always Salesians, the nuns, always just girls, which really, again, was causing another problem from the point of view. I found it so difficult to talk to boys. I had such anxiety around talking to boys because, for me personally, I don't agree with, schooling children, separating, I don't agree with that. It's not normal for life. It's always going to take people time to adapt by bringing in the other gender. So I enjoyed my friendships again. There is that kind of common theme, very, very close friendships. But school, lack of focus. I was that student that I thought about this actually. I was out walking the other day and I was thinking about this interview, and I had an art teacher who wrote in my school report, believe in yourself. And I remember at the time going, oh my God, I was 14 and thinking that's such a naff thing to say, but she obviously saw something. It'd be lovely to meet her now, actually. She obviously saw something, in me that I didn't see myself. So there was lots of Gillian can do better as well in the report cards.
Gillian, thank you for going back there. And I have to say, I'm watching Shelley nod, I'm glad I asked you to go back there, because we would have missed all that richness. Because we've been saying this for a year now on the Coffee 11 show. We've no idea what's behind any smile. We all slap on a smile and slap on our best bib and tucker and go out there, present our best side to the world. And you went through a difficult time. You used the word ugly, and what came to mind was ugly duckling, out of place, but now you're turning into a beautiful swan. In terms of taking all those lessons and applying them and putting them out there through the Wellness Lounge for other people to benefit from. So, full of bus for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tell us about, and you said, you used the phrase, you've got great compassion for people going through that type of stuff now, for the world that kids are inhabiting.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've great compassion for myself. I have great compassion for everybody I meet and work with, because inside every one of us is that younger part of us who didn't have the tools to really, cope with life. Nobody handed us this guidebook to say, look, you might feel this way and that's normal. So instead of actually giving yourself a hard time, maybe say this to yourself instead, so to be compassionate. And, sometimes we put a lot of emphasis on parents to be these perfect parents, but there's no such thing as a perfect parent as well. And I don't think that people can fully empathize unless they go through something as well. So I'm compassionate to everybody, because I know the value of actually loving myself and supporting myself. And if I knew that back then, well, wow, I would have actually, I think, stopped and actually took a breath and enjoyed my life, instead of I was in fight or flight all the time, So, and like what you said there, Colin, nobody knew that was going on for me. Equally, that was probably happening for a lot of people around me. So it might have been my height, it might have been someone's hair color, it might have been someone's voice or whatever. We all have these things. And they say it can be, that's just teenagers, but it's not, because you can carry that right through life, and it can become your beliefs about yourself. And then it can really prohibit you from actually, progressing or developing or relaxing, in
Yeah,
life.
I was talking with this fella yesterday. I'm blessed to meet loads of people, and most of it's done online these days, which again, I think is a blessing, to be honest, because we get to meet so many more people from so many different diverse geographical locations. And his name is Dara, and he was talking about his early days. And now, as an adult, he's in his 40s now. Now, as an adult, he constantly goes back and talks to little Dara, and they're there. You're okay, Dara. So you're absolutely right. You didn't know then what you know now.
No.
And that art teacher that wrote "Believe in Yourself," you thought it was how naff, and now it's your life's mission to get people.
I know, when you think of it like that, but I had to go through several more challenges along the way before I realized that.
And that's exactly where I wanted to get to next, if you don't mind, because all of it has formed who you are now, and it's informing the work of the Wellness Lounge. So yeah. Back to Maynooth.
So Maynooth, I studied arts, English, history. I always wanted to be, no, I didn't always want to. I suppose late in secondary school, thinking about what I wanted, I looked at journalism, and I really loved writing, loved English, and that was one area that I studied because I was passionate about it. Everything else, really, I didn't. So even I learned now, looking back, you have to love what you do, so otherwise it was a struggle, and I kind of disconnect when it's a struggle, and that was just part of who I was. So I went to Maynooth, and I met a fantastic group of people, some I'm still in contact with, and talk about law of attraction. I attracted in the most unfocused, fun people because we all basically had a great year. None of us studied. And we all went our separate ways after 12 months. So you can imagine the conversations at home after that. I repeated my exams, and that summer, it was actually the summer Princess Diana died. I remember I was doing my repeating my history exam, and I had to repeat one sociology actually as well. So, but I had a conversation with my mom, and she said, there's no way you're going back up there to repeat that year again. So I was eager to get out working. And so that's what I did. So my stint in university was 12 fun months. And I mean, I did take things from that time, Colin, because obviously there was boys around, so I relaxed into that a little bit. And just kind of being away from home, first time away from home, independence. That was very important for me. Always very independent in my thinking. Actually, there's a funny story about the independence. I remember, well, my mother would have told me this. I had a bank account in Bank of Ireland when I was quite young. And where my parents' house is, there was a Bank of Ireland across the road. And at 5 years of age, because my mother wouldn't give me any money, I actually stood up on the stool, got my bank book out, went across the, true story, went across the road to the bank. They knew me, so they thought it was so funny. So they gave me £1. And then I went to the shop beside the bank and I bought sweets. So my mother kind of came across me and she said, where did you, what's after happening here? So I told her. So there was that kind of determination from a young age. I did something similar with the Santa list. I put my Santa list into the bank post box. My mother was frantic because she didn't see the list. So she had to go over, they had to empty the letter box, all without me knowing. So again, that independence and determination. So Maynooth definitely gave me that independence. I loved being out, living my life. My mother used to say, I was always, when we were fighting, because I can't wait to leave here, can't wait to get out here, you know. So, and then I came back after a few months and I started working. I did a FOSS course actually in computers because that's what everybody was doing. 1997, it was like, there's this thing called computers and IT, get on it. So to my mother's credit, actually, she organized that for me. She said, you have to do something. I did that and I started working in a stationery shop in Limerick City. It's now Silks. It was One Stop Stationery there on Catherine Street. I loved it. I actually loved like earning money. I loved working. I'd always had a part-time job growing up, worked in Rocha stores all the time. Not all the time, sorry, all through my teens. I'd done loads of different kind of odd kind of jobs here and there. So from a young age, the work ethic definitely was instilled in me. And an opportunity came up for me to study a diploma in information technology while working for a company in Dublin. It was through my brother and his now ex-wife, actually. They were living in Dublin at the time and they'd heard of this initiative because Dublin was like the hot spot for, you know, IT, but they couldn't wait for the graduates. They just wanted people on the ground. And so this was kind of a fast track. And I was like, oh, this is for me, perfect. Like, get me working. Let's fast track me through college. So I had to do an interview and an aptitude test. And I did 9 months full time in out in south side of Dublin. I can't remember the name of Loughlinstown. It was a fall centre in Loughlinstown. So I moved to Dublin and lived in Clontarf. And I don't know if anyone knows Dublin. Lived in Clontarf and commuted to Loughlinstown. So it was like ridiculous for 8 o'clock in the morning. So talk about making my life harder. So I did a bus, a dart and a bus. So beautiful by the coast, so lovely. And I did the FOSS course and then started in my job 1999, just as the IT world was like, oh my God, what's going to happen in New Year's Eve 1999? Do you remember the whole Y2K patch? So I was kind of now thrown into the deep end and part of rolling out the fix for that. So that was kind of exciting. November 1999, I just turned 22 and I started my full-time career in Dublin. So it was great.
Wonderful stuff, wonderful stuff. That was great. There was some lovely themes running through that. Hard work, clearly, chomping at the bit to get out into the real world and start earning your own money. I love that. Going over and a 5-year-old robbing the bank of a pound, right? And I'm sure they were all laughing. I was imagining your 5'1" mother pointing up at you. You can't be. Now I know you're only 5 at the time, but those rows later on, you know, trying to rein you in, and you're looking down at her from, you know, as you said yourself, you're almost 6 foot. So that, and you saying, I can't wait to get out of here, Mal.
Oh yeah. We were very alike. So we kind of like, and see, secretly she loved that independence. She loved that. So as much she would be given out to me, she loved it. She was like, that's fantastic. I like that. So she did definitely encourage her 3 daughters in particular to be 3 independent ladies, you know. So wonderful. I do thank my mother for that.
Delighted to hear that. The Dublin piece, I'm from Dublin originally, went to school in Clontarf, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And that is some trek to get to Loughlinstown from Clontarf, but you did it. Well done, you. So we're now into the 2000s. When did you come back to Limerick? And you're doing some work with UL.
Yeah, so I came back to Limerick in 2008. So I stayed in Dublin with the IT company, moved to Edinburgh actually with the IT company, lived in Edinburgh for a year and a half, loved it. Came back to Galway, left IT, went managing a coffee shop, Butler's Coffee Shop in Galway. Again, common thread here is I was looking for something. I can look back now and know that I was just constantly searching for something. I loved the job managing the coffee shop because I was interacting with people and I was giving them a service and they were happy. And I realized that, you know, in hindsight, that kind of transaction of coming in, saying good morning, giving a cappuccino, I was part of the positive part of their day. I didn't realize that's why I liked it at the time. It's kind of reflecting. So I did that and then came back to Limerick in 2008. I just left a relationship. I was 30, unemployed and back home. I'm thinking, oh God, I'm such a failure. And I was looking for a job and didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't want to go back to IT. And the cafe industry wasn't paying me the money that I wanted. But I had thought like maybe I'll open a cafe. So maybe I'll save and I'll open a cafe because I really like that environment. And as I said, I'd worked in retail for a long time. So I decided, okay, I'll stay in retail. And I went working for Lidl for 5 years. So I went in as a project manager with Lidl. Their base is in Charleville, County Cork, commuting distance from Limerick. And so the chronic stress began. So yeah. So even though I'd worked in corporate in IT is very, from my experience back then, was a great place to work. It was a great, you know, there was the busy days and then there's the days when you didn't have that much to do and it was kind of come in, do what you needed to do. But it was a very fun environment. Retail, a little bit different. And in particular, working for Lidl was quite tough, you know. So I did that for 5 years, and you know, I realize again, because of the work I've done, I just surrounded myself with people whose values didn't align with mine, you know. So I was about helping people. I was about, you know, the compassion. Definitely, I'm not afraid of hard work. You mean, you heard that wasn't an issue. But there was lots of judgment, you know, focused on money, power, all those different things. And I started to really suffer in that, to be honest with you. Yeah, I started to feel very, very uncomfortable.
Your honesty is tremendous. Thank you for coming in. Yeah, I'm watching. Thanks, James. Thanks indeed, Seamus. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we hope to achieve when we open up the cafe here for a chat every Friday. Because in your honesty with yourself and then verbalizing it publicly with us, thank you for that. You know, everybody else is picking this up in their own particular way and relating it to something that either they've gone through or maybe know somebody's gone through. So thank you for that, Gillian. I loved what you said there about a value alignment. I loved what you said there. I mean, you've obviously been very much in touch with with who you are, or you've been searching for who you are for years. Yeah. I felt for you when you said, I woke up, I was age 30 back at home, and thought to myself, oh, I'm a failure. You know, you weren't, and you weren't. It was a moment in time. Yeah. And you mentioned the cafe business. I can't let that one slip by. That's my background.
That's right. Yeah.
Used to manage Bewley's Cafe in Grafton Street back in the day. Loved it. Took on the Bewley's in Cruises Street in Limerick as a franchise, my first business, and it failed, right? Thus the grey hair. See, I'm only 27, right? But it failed spectacularly. So while I agree with you, and when you said I was going to save money and buy a cafe, I was thinking to myself, don't go there, Gillian, don't go there.
Oh, no, I've let that one go.
But look, it's a beautifully human story. Thank you for that. And as I said to you at the very start, but it's becoming more and more clear, it's lining you up for the Wellness Lounge.
Yes.
So So, but I'm not going to, let's just talk about your role in UL before we go to the Wellness Lounge, if you don't mind.
Okay. So,
because I find it curious, the actual role. What's it called?
oh yeah, so I'm head of leadership and representation in UL Student Life, which is formerly the Students' Union. And I started there in 2017 after taking a little hiatus from work, and thought, okay, while I'm building the Wellness Lounge, I need to, bring in the consistent stream of money. And so I saw this ad which was around helping and supporting young leaders, and I thought, oh, hello, okay, this is something. I had just qualified as a coach, but also having the experience that I've had, I thought, God, I can bring a wealth of knowledge here. And I basically work with the student officers who are elected into office every year. So, the student president, student welfare officer, we have communities and academic officer. So they're elected in for 1 year. And they are put into positions of power. They sit on governing authority in UL. They sit on different committees. And they carry a lot of weight with their roles. But they have 12 months to be effective. And 2021, 22, you put a lot of pressure on yourself to be effective. So it's a very flawed system. And I see my part is to bring in personal development into that. So as they are growing into their role, they're managing themselves, they're learning about themselves, and they leave that role having not really thinking about, I got this or I got that, because change takes time in universities, more about, I understand this is how I manage stress. I understand in order for me to be effective, I need to do this, that, because it's a massive learning for them. And when I went in there, there was all this, by semester 1, week 6, because that's the way it works out there, all the calendars and the weeks, you will burn out, And I thought, no, we need to look at this. We need to not, be creating this reality or accepting that. So I've brought in leadership programs. I brought in coaching, supervision, training for these officers to help them to manage themselves. We're still in the process of getting there. It's not perfect yet, especially this year, obviously, with being online. But I also look at the whole class representation. So again, giving students the voice, which is what the university want. They want the students to have a voice. But again, you're trying to instill that confidence. And that's why I always talk so openly as well, because I know that we're all humans, and basically fundamentally we might have different experiences and different beliefs, but we can all resonate with different things each other says, so we're all here having an experience, so there is crossover. And so I encourage the students to be open and honest as well, and I try to create safe space for them to actually say, well, I'm not happy with this, or I'd like to change this. So there's about 300 student reps every year, and I'm in charge of the framework of that. Now, I don't get to really do the work with them individually because I need to be kind of the person managing it. So I bring people in, people I've worked with, to do a lot of personal development and support and training. And I come across like, well, we don't need training, and that's okay. I don't need that, So there is all those challenges as well. And it's like, oh, okay, you kind of do, we all do.
That reminds me of the Oscar Wilde quote, I'm not young enough to know absolutely everything.
Yeah.
As he got older,
Yeah.
So come here, it's lovely stuff. It's lovely stuff. Compassion, I scribbled that down and I just went back to it there. That's you to a T. You're compassionate with yourself. You're compassionate with those around you. You want to make a difference, and you are making a difference, and you're doing so in such a way that you're allowing for the frailties of those around you, as those young people who actually think they don't need any, don't need any help. I'm fine here, right? We're really fascinating stuff. Thank you for that. And I think you described it to me before the show as, if you like, you're managing or monitoring democracy in you. I just thought that was a great way of describing the work you do, class representation, which is effectively democracy.
Yeah, well, there's the whole constitution and democratic process, which I have to do as well, which, isn't the most exciting part. But the exciting part is if we get that foundation there, then there's a clear, transparent democratic process where young people get to inform the changes, you know, that are needed for them to have a better student experience. And I think that's pretty powerful, you know, so.
That's very powerful, very powerful. So, the Wellness Lounge, and we're getting towards the end because we want to go to most people's favourite part of the show, which is the Princess Shelley slot. We're going to go there and just, what can I say, so Shelley? We're going to go there in a moment, right? Before we do, the Wellness Lounge, and then I've got two quick questions for you.
Okay, so the Wellness Lounge, basically I qualified as a coach and decided to focus on the area of wellness because I developed an autoimmune condition from chronic stress. So that kind of triggered in 2014. And I do believe it's 8 to 10 years of chronic stress and probably a lifetime of like, you know, stress, you know, as well, because I wasn't able to manage myself or believe in myself. So I really, really started to see the value of working on myself, and I really wanted to, you know, allow people to access that information through my coaching. So I started in 2017 doing one-to-one coaching. I trained as a Heal Your Life workshop facilitator. So Louise Hay, the book You Can Heal Your Life, fabulous book. And my mother actually bought me that book in 2005. And just after my mother died in 2015, I came across the book again. So I think my mother has been part of my journey, definitely. So I started delivering workshops and coaching. And I called it Innovative Wellness because of my whole business head. And then I rebranded it to the Wellness Lounge because I wanted to create this sense of come in, have a chat, you know, I can meet you where you're at, that empathy and compassion piece. And I often say to people, I'm a compassionate coach as well, because, you know, you've got your executive coach and the wellness coach, but, you know, I'm a compassionate coach. I understand, I listen, I'll support. I also mentor because of my years of experience in business. I'll have a lot of people looking at work-life balance as well. And so really in the last 18 months, my business has really thrived. I started working for a company in the States who bring a wellness platform to different corporates. And through that, I get to coach people all around the world. And again, you realize, you know, we're all the same, no matter race, gender, you know, everybody has the same challenges everywhere, you know, and through COVID, it was the same for everybody. People lost their structure, lost connection, they were losing their sleep, you know, so again, it's just been able to actually, like what you said there, you know, make a difference. And I think that's what I was searching for all my life, is I wanted to make a difference. I kept leaving relationships, I kept leaving jobs, I kept leaving scenarios because I was searching for something where I could make a difference. So I had to go through all that to get to where I am today. So when lockdown happened in March, I set up a Facebook page and there's 1,800 people on the page. I brought a whole load of different therapists that I know, that I've worked with, that I've trained with, and we were giving in the first lockdown day-to-day support. It's quieting down now, but in the first one there was a lot of interaction. It was fantastic. There was beautiful energy in that group, and again, it was all about supporting and educating people to manage themselves. And that's kind of really at the core of what I do. It's not to fix you. It's not to tell you what to do. It's to help you. It's to show you. It's to guide you. It's to support you, to believe in yourself, to be compassionate with yourself. And it's like magical when you see that actually happening for someone, because it's a resource we all have. And then people, I never knew I could talk to myself like that.
I love the use of the word magical in there, because I fully subscribe. And I think everybody here, all the regulars in the cafe here, that's the world we inhabit, that there is a magic out there that can be brought to bear on everyday life. And yeah, well done. Thanks, Tim Kelly. Well done. 1,800 people in your group doing great work. Compassionate coach. I love that. And you love being the compassionate coach. I am a reluctant coach, which is why we set up Wigwam, Shelley and I, because I can then allow other people to be brilliant at what they're brilliant at, which is coaching. And but you are making a difference. You are making a difference. And I was. Do you know what? Something stopped me asking about your mother earlier in the conversation. I find that really interesting. And then you shared that your mother passed in 2005.
2015.
2015.
Yeah,
2015.
she did,
And at that point, you found the book again.
Oh yeah, that was my turning point. The night in the
Yes.
hospital was my turning point. My mom died suddenly, an aneurysm. And just to say, because it is very interesting, like just from a spiritual point of view, because I wasn't really open to spirituality at all. In the room where they had laid out my mom after she passed away, my dad said to me, and my dad is a man of very few words, but he said to me, you know, your mother loved you. And I said, yeah. And it's kind of, do you ever have one of those situations where he's saying something and you kind of know it's like familiar or something? And I can't really, he said, you know, your mother adored you is what he said. And I said, yes. And he said, she can help you now more than ever before. And I said, I know that. And I did know that. And something, and he doesn't remember that conversation. He didn't remember that conversation the day after. And when I told my sisters that, they were like, Dad said that, because it wouldn't be his kind of language. I think that was my mother speaking to me. And that was like the 8th of August, 2015. And I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I had to do something with my life because I wasn't happy. And that was my turning point. And I started on this path of kind of healing as such.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
indeed. Yeah. Beautiful heart emojis all over the place there. What's your mother's name?
Frances
Frances.
Joe.
We're very grateful to Frances for speaking to your dad and pointing you to the book that you'd had for a while.
Yeah.
You're on the right path. Great. Gillian, it's been a joy. Pleasure having you here in the cafe, and thanks for being here. 2 quick questions and we'll get to Princess Shelley if that's okay. Number 1 is, what are you taking with you from COVID that you're not letting go of?
Well, actually accepting that I'm an introvert. I didn't realize that, you know. I think I tried to be an extrovert for, 42, 43 years and put myself into social situations that I really wasn't comfortable with because I would be, oh, that's odd. You have to go out. You have to do this. So I actually enjoy my own company. I enjoy, quieter times. And also I got an opportunity when you take away all the distractions, a lot of stuff comes up. And I got an opportunity to really heal by being more compassionate and using the term of self-soothing. So I've actually understood myself a lot more. I actually got to know myself a lot more. And, when this passes, as it will do, I will be back in the world as a much more grounded, self-aware, happier person.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you, Seamus. Absolutely perfect. You've put the time to good use. Well done. And then what one thing would you recommend if you came across somebody, a loved one that you identified was struggling with what's going on at the moment with the lack of certainty? What one thing would you recommend somebody do? If they could only do one thing to get themselves through it, what would you suggest that one thing is?
To talk to yourself like yourself like you would your best friend. So to actually learn a supporting dialogue. When I say that to people, the longest relationship we have is the relationship we have with ourselves. People are like, what? Because I was when I heard that, first of all, and then say, well, what would you say to your sister? What would you say to your best friend if they actually gave you that situation or scenario then? And then do that for yourself because it works. And that's the self-soothing piece. So, and another thing is, don't always believe all your thoughts. Just because you have a thought doesn't mean it's true, so be aware of your thoughts, so it doesn't mean it's true.
It's great stuff. It's great stuff. What's fascinating for me is all of the learning that you've had to undergo, and you've done so willingly over 40 odd years, as you said it. And now you're taking that and reflecting it back out to the world, and you'll be helping. It's what I refer to as 100-year work, Gillian, because if you take those 20-something-year-olds in college that you impact, they will take whatever it is they learn from you and pass it on to their children and therefore their grandchildren and so on. And it's 100-year work. It's been a pleasure. Don't go anywhere. Princess Shelley.
Hey, Gillian. So many beautiful comments from all our guests in the cafe this morning, Gillian, for the chat you've shared with Colm and that we all got the privilege of listening in on and learning from and making notes on, such really great love in the cafe. The conversation started off very much like your normal cafe out in the real world. Everyone saying hi to the regular faces that come in, and hi Kathy, hi Seamus, hi. A little bit of banter going on. Tim Kelly is trying to keep the COVID hair under control with a Jane Fonda headband today. So I'm not sure will we get to see him in the edited version, but a little bit of banter going on between our cafe, people coming in and out slagging Tim for that. So there was a lot of love then for Eamon's gift this morning, our grounding moment, our mindful moment, and of course the little bit of other gifts, birthday gifts on his behalf to us. So a lot of love for that and appreciation. Thanks for that, Eamon. And then Dee kicked us off. Dee was a previous guest. Her show goes out this Sunday. I'm really looking forward to that going out. A really inspiring powerhouse of a woman. And Dee kicked us off saying, you were talking about your early journey, Gillian, and she said maybe you innately knew that there was something else. You know, you were talking about as you navigated through your childhood, and you were really bringing us all in. You had such lovely descriptive way of telling us of your journey, you know. Then Colm shared the song and everybody was saying, oh, this is my favorite song and I love this. Everyone loved that, Colm, that you shared that. Someone said it was their favorite song. Eamon said that. So I really enjoyed that myself. We could have a coffee at 11 show karaoke. You just never know. Colm's shaking his head. So Sarah Ward, who's a regular in the cafe, she's literally here every day. When Colm pulls up the shutters, it's like Sarah nearly helps him lift them every single episode. And Sarah says her son was very tall, young, and felt very uncomfortable for years. You know, that was when you were kind of kicking us off. He would ask me how tall he was, and she lied to him for years. Tell him that he was shorter. Isn't that amazing? Wouldn't that gives me a little bit of a pain actually to even, I read that half an hour ago, and even just to read it, it's like, wow, she would take a few inches off. So you were explaining that, and that resonated with her. And that's what Colm was saying earlier on, you know, you just don't know when you're sharing who it is that you're talking to, and that meant something to Sarah, you know. Eamon says, thanks for sharing the power of your vulnerability. He felt like, Gillian, that you were reading parts of his school experiences.
Oh, that's great.
So,
thank you, Eamon.
And Seamus, arriving from the real capital, Seamus, isn't that right? Seamus, joining us in Cork, lovely to have you. Ballincollig, I believe, says, powerful lessons, Gillian. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Eamon was saying you obviously love what you do, you know. And Dee then said, what I'm learning now is she was quoting you, Gillian, you know. She said, what I'm learning now is I was actually fine as I was, but I didn't know it. And she loves your lightness of being. It's just so welcoming. And I really agree with you there, Dee. Really is captivating to listen to your journey. That's a lovely comment, Dee, isn't it? And then Seamus came back and said he has 3 daughters and encouraging their confidence abilities is so important. So I'm glad that resonated for you, Seamus. Donal O'Leary, nice that you're here in the cafe with us, Donal. Endearing honesty. It's difficult when the real reason is assumed to be something else. Shyness being read as standoffishness, as you mentioned, you know. So that meant something to Donal, and he felt like it was a really great example, you know. So then you were talking about being back at home and that, and Eamon said rock bottom's a great place to start. It's a solid grounding and you can't fall off the floor, which is always, you know, Eamon's so fantastic with that, you know. That's kind of his bliss, his sweet spot. Donach had a question. I'll share it, Donach, if that's okay. Donach said, how did you feel, you did touch on it, Gillian, how did you feel about moving back home at 30, and how did you go about believing yourself from that standpoint? Would you be okay with maybe sharing a comment on that question there, Gillian?
Well, I moved back at 30, but I'm also back now at 43 because I'm saving for a house. So I got over it. I will say one thing just to say is I realized I was judging myself by all these life goals, what society puts on you. You know, it's kind of, you're 30, you should be this, you should be that, you should be. And when I did the Louise Hay training, you know, Louise Hay talks about taking the should out of the dictionary because it just makes us feel guilty, like we're failing. So back then, if you asked me, Donach, I would have thought like, oh yeah, like I'm a loser. Looking back now, I would say, God, wasn't it great to have home to go to, you know? And it's great to have it now. And it's been great during lockdown to have it as well. It's just so comforting. While I wait for Colm to leave his apartment so I want that apartment with that view.
I know we're all a little bit jealous of his views, really. So such a beautiful spot. Gillian, that is such a great and inspiring way to look at it. And I share it like that. Wasn't it a gift? That time, both for home and for you. You know, it was a mutually received gift. So
yeah. Everything happens for a reason. And I trust that even what's happening now is happening for a reason. So when I've kind of much more trusting now of everything that's happening so I can cope with things or deal with things a lot better.
Yeah, yeah. I agree, and thanks for answering that. I hope that helped answer your question, Donald. Donald Thurlow, who is joining us as well. Donald, I'm loving your backdrop today, and again, a previous guest on the show and a regular attendee at the cafe. Really great story there for Donald as well, being involved in teaching and children for many years. He said, once again, the importance of a perceptive teacher, and that really was a thread throughout his interview as well, I remember here in the cafe. He said, from your anecdote about the teacher's question, he chaired many interview panels in schools over the years for deputies and heads of departments, and he always included the pupil on the panel, and the candidates that when offered the opportunity to ask questions chose to ask the pupil a question, and that always scored bonus points on Donald's sheet. Isn't that lovely? Love that. Love that. Eilish, it's lovely to have you in the cafe, Eilish. I love it when we see somebody come in. Eilish came in last week because as a friend of D, and then she's returned this week, and I just love that. And that's like Kathy as well. Kathy's joining us from the United States. She came in to see a certain guest and has never left again. So we just love that. So it's lovely to have you here, Eilish. Really great. She said, thank you, Gillian, for sharing such an inspiring story. And again, we all kind of got this, I saw the whole cafe sympathetic head tilt when we were talking about your mom, and we realized that you'd lost her along the way. And you said that's when you came across the book. And Eilish perfectly said, your mother's passing gave you your wings. So so thank you for that, Eilish. Really great comment. And I felt that with you. I felt that. Dee says, a great story that will help and heal so many, Gillian. Sometimes it's in the hello and the how we met someone that starts the magic of the healing. So that's so true, Dee. Kathy says, thanks for Kathy Mara, who I just mentioned. She became a grandmother for the first time on the Coffee at 11 show. Kathy said, thank you for sharing your story, such honesty. So many lovely comments. And you know, when I start sharing, that's when they all start flooding in, and I'm conscious of time. Eamon says, the mammies are definitely helping us from beyond this life. Same here. My big sister too, our nearest and dearest who have passed, always have our back when we stay open. And that's when you mentioned about the conversation with your dad and said she's in a better position to help you now than she ever has been. Nuala, it's lovely to have you here in the cafe. Thank you for being here. She's found your story, Gillian, excellent and inspirational, real life and true, and wanted to congratulate you on that. And Seamus, I agree. I actually wrote it down here when Gillian said, don't always believe your own thoughts, and Seamus shared that. So I agree with that. That was a really nice pearl of wisdom there. Donald says, take the should out, and then Eamon, we should all over ourselves. So yeah, that was what you were saying there. So thank you. I'm sorry if I flipped past your comments. So many lovely comments. The cafe really is such a wonderful place to be, and it's because you're here. I can very quickly invite a question. Eamon has put in everybody, all the links there for to access you, Gillian, for the Wellness Lounge. So as we always say, if you click on the three dots at the bottom, you should be able to share that, or indeed just copy and paste the links and access them a little bit later. Thank you, Eamon, for all those links. And he's also just posted up. He's always on the ball, is Eamon. He's just popped up the Coffee at 11 show playlist where you can catch up. You can catch James, and you can catch Donna, and you can catch Dee, who'll be going up on Sunday. So lots of great, the back catalogue is there if you want to access it. So it's at this point I can, just before handing back to our host, I can invite a question. If you'd like to give me a little wave or something like that, raise your hand if you would like to ask Gillian a question direct this morning. I can offer you. I see you, Tim. So now that this means, you do realise, don't you, that this means you get on the live edit and we're going to see that gorgeous headband that you're wearing. So unmute Tim. This is the resident pup. He assists Eamon, and often he was a little bit bothered he didn't get to share his Friday joke actually. So this could be your segue into that. Ask your question there, Tim, to Gillian.
You're very bold, Michelle. You're very bold. Yeah, I can't help but try and get on the edit. Cat'll kill me. But if anybody else wants to ask a question, jump in. But if nobody's throwing their hand up, I'm always going to ask a question. Gillian, I have two questions for you. One, very quickly, you mentioned a US wellness program that's been offered up to corporates. I might know some companies that would be very interested in that. So I'd love to find out more a little bit about
Oh, lovely, because I'm trying to help as many as possible, so it's hard to get into corporate, so that would be great.
that. Well, that's it.
Yeah.
And corporates find it hard to trust who to work for, so I might be able to help there. But more interestingly, from my own perspective, you mentioned about embracing being an introvert. And we have a society, particularly in the Western world, that lauds extroverts. It's all about bigger and better and buyer and more. And I similarly realized I was an introvert a few years ago, and I read a book about the differences between the two. What I naturally am is an introvert. And since embracing that, I've been much more happier. Have you any advice for other people to kind of help them to decide, to understand the difference between the two and the importance of embracing?
I think by developing a relationship with yourself, you start to check in with yourself and you ask questions like, what's important to me? What do I need? What do I like? So actually starting to have that dialogue and developing the relationship, which is kind of what I do with people I coach because I found the value in it myself. You realize, why am I doing this? So even when we're having a reaction to something, so if we're stressed about something, upset, asking why, assessing the situation and what do I need right now? So if it's alone time, then honor that. If it's going for a walk, then honor that. But by asking yourself the question, turning that in as opposed to looking out, I have found that very, very helpful. So I talk to myself a lot.
I love your advice about talk to yourself as you would your best friend. You know, what would you tell somebody else to do? And I came up with the concept of self-care comes first a few years ago, and it's changed my life. And I think what you're saying is bang on. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Great.
Thank you so much.
Great question, Tim, and great answer, Gillian. And on that note, I'm only delighted to hand back over to you. Colin, back to you.
It's joyful. It really is. We are
Thank
so
you.
blessed. We are so blessed that this has come into our lives, and Gillian, that you've come into our lives today and shared, because, you know, and that's why the Princess Shelley part is in fact everybody's favorite part, mine included, right? Because we get to hear, because you and I are chatting, so I'm not watching what's going on, and but we get to hear all that wonderful, rich content, and, you know, all the stuff that people heard, and we all heard the same words, but different things spoke to different people. So
Exactly.
Gillian, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Now, let me just finish it off by thanking the team, if that's okay. Princess Shelley for producing today's show. Heart emojis all over the place. Eamon Smith, aka The Monk, for grounding us at the very start. Thank you for that. Tim Kenny for the atrocious joke, but for keeping us all safe and sound, keeping an eye on the door and the toilet windows and all the rest of it. And of course, Katrina O'Brien, who sits there, the real boss, just calm as you like, and is going to make this all beautiful. And it'll go out to an audience of close to 5 million on Sunday week. So thank you for that. And we've no idea who's going to stumble across it. It's just out there. But that's up to the universe and, of course, your mother.
Exactly. yeah.
Listen,
I'll go viral.
it's been wonderful. So I'll just finish by saying, Gillian O'Gorman, namaste.
Thank you. It's been amazing. Thank you. Loved it.